Imagine Amsterdam in the mid-17th century. This is not just any city, it is the capital of the world at the time. The equivalent of today's New York or Silicon Valley. The scent of exotic spices from India mixes with the aroma of sea salt, and at the stock exchange, fortunes can be made, or lost, within an hour. At the very heart of this chaos lives a man who sees the world differently than everyone else. While others paint what is visible at first glance, he paints what is hidden, deep beneath the skin. Yet in 1669, that same man passes away, in complete silence. His possessions? A few dirty brushes, an old apron, and canvases that no one wants to buy anymore. Rembrandt van Rijn, the man who became the King of Light, ends his life as a bankrupt. But it is precisely in this downfall that the greatest mystery of his art lies. Why did a painter who once earned mountains of gold have to choose between buying paint and bread? How is it possible that his darkest years produced the brightest masterpieces? Today, I will take you on a journey through the life of an artist who was not afraid of darkness because he knew that only within it can the true glow of the human soul be seen. Rembrandt was not born in a palace. He came into the world in 1606 in Leiden as the ninth child of a miller. His father dreamed that his son would become a scholar. Rembrandt did indeed attend a prestigious university, but his heart beat to the rhythm of mixing pigments, not studying Latin texts. After less than a year, he abandoned his studies and devoted himself to the craft of art. What set him apart from the very beginning was an extraordinary, almost audacious self-confidence. In the 17th century, every respectable artist had to travel to Italy to copy Renaissance masters like Michelangelo or Raphael. Rembrandt, however, declared that he was going nowhere. He claimed that everything worth painting was right here, in the faces of neighbors, in the light streaming through a dirty window, in the texture of old fabric. Already in his 20s, he opened his own studio and began attracting the attention of the wealthiest collectors. However, Leiden was only a testing ground for him. The real game, for big money and fame, was being played in Amsterdam. Moving to Amsterdam in 1631 was like entering a lion's den. The city was full of talented painters, but Rembrandt had something they lacked, a sense of direction, almost cinematic. A year later, he received the commission that would change the history of art forever, the anatomy lesson of Dr. Tulp. Let's pause on this painting for a moment. Looked like boring class photos, everyone lined up, stiff, staring straight at the viewer. Rembrandt ignored this. He created a scene full of tension, almost like a frame from a thriller. We see a group of doctors gathered around a subject. Fascination, disbelief, scientific curiosity. Rembrandt didn't just paint people. He painted their emotions, in real time. This work made him the most sought-after portraitist in the city. He became a 17th century celebrity. Anyone with capital wanted to be immortalized by the master of light. Soon after the success, Rembrandt meets the woman who would become his greatest muse, Saskia van Uylenburg. She was the daughter of an influential mayor and brought not only beauty into the relationship, but also a substantial dowry. This was a time of boundless happiness, but also unprecedented extravagance. Rembrandt buys a massive, luxurious house on Jodenbraestraat, the equivalent of purchasing a mansion on the Upper East Side in New York today. During this period, the artist behaves like an obsessed collector. He spends a fortune at auctions, buying exotic costumes, Eastern carpets, antique weapons, and jewelry. Why did he do it? Not only out of vanity, he treated his home as a prop warehouse. He dressed Saskia in silks and pearls, painting her as the goddess Flora or as biblical figures. It was during this time that he developed his unique chiaroscuro technique, an extreme contrast of light and shadow that made figures seem to emerge from darkness straight into the viewer's embrace. He was at the peak, He had money, love, and a status others could only dream of. We now arrive at the year 1642, a key moment in this story. Rembrandt paints his most famous work, The Night Watch. This massive canvas was a prestigious commission from a civic militia company. And here is where the problem arose that marked the beginning of his downfall. Imagine paying an artist a huge sum to be included in a painting, only for him to depict you in deep shadow, barely visible, while placing a mysterious girl in a golden dress in the foreground who doesn't even belong to your group. Rembrandt placed artistic vision above the ego of his clients. Instead of a static portrait, he created a dynamic scene of movement. This was the moment when Amsterdam's elite began to turn away from him. His style was becoming too modern, too raw. Worse still, in that same year, just months after completing the painting, his beloved Saskia dies. Rembrandt is left alone, with growing debts and an infant in his arms. Before we move on to the Great Crash, one of the most fascinating facts. For over 2 centuries, the world believed that the action in the Night Watch takes place in the middle of the night. That's where the title comes from. However, during restoration in the mid-20th century, something astonishing was discovered. What had been taken for a night sky was actually just a thick layer of old, darkened varnish and accumulated dust. After cleaning the canvas, it turned out to be a bright, sunny afternoon. Rembrandt was not painting night, he was painting light, breaking through the urban landscape, creating drama where others saw only an ordinary day. The 1650s were a true hell for Rembrandt. His love of luxury, combined with a lack of new commissions, led to disaster. In 1656, the painter was forced to declare complete insolvency. Bailiffs entered his estate and auctioned off everything from valuable paintings by other masters to his own brushes, furniture, and even personal mementos of Saskia. Rembrandt lost his home, but it did not break him. He moved to a more modest apartment in a poorer district. Since, as a bankrupt, he could not run his own business, his son Titus and his new partner Hendrikia set up a company in which the master was officially only an employee. This allowed him to continue painting, even though legally he owned nothing. During this time, his style became even more daring. He began using impasto, applying paint in such thick layers that the works became almost three-dimensional. Critics mocked that his portraits could be picked up by the nose. But Rembrandt knew that this texture gave his figures life and truth. Rembrandt was a master of portraying others, but no one in the history of art analyzed themselves as ruthlessly. Throughout his life, he created nearly 80 self-portraits. If you arrange them chronologically, you will see the first time-lapse of passing time. In the early works, we see a young lion, confident, dressed in furs and gold. But the later ones, from the 1660s, are striking. Rembrandt hides nothing: wrinkles, gray hair, reddened eyes, tired from working by candlelight. These are not paintings of vanity. They are a great philosophical project, an attempt to understand what happens to a person when they lose everything except their dignity and passion. It is these late self-portraits, painted in poverty, that are considered today the most valuable, because they are a universal story about all of us. Although Rembrandt never left the Netherlands, his spirit came to dominate American visual culture. American millionaires of the Gilded Age, such as J.P. Morgan or Henry Frick, were fascinated by his story, rags to riches and back again. Thanks to them, some of the master's most important works are now in the United States. At the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, you can see, among others, Aristotle contemplating the bust of Homer, for which a record sum of $2.3 million was paid in 1961. But Rembrandt's influence goes far beyond museum walls. If you are interested in film or photography, You have certainly heard of Rembrandt lighting. It is the characteristic triangle of light under the eye on the shadowed side of the face. This simple 17th century trick remains a foundation of lighting in Hollywood today. Cinematographers of masterpieces like The Godfather or films by Martin Scorsese openly admit that Rembrandt was their first and most important teacher in building mood. The master from Amsterdam created a visual language of drama that we use every time we want to show depth and mystery on screen. Why, in 2026, are we still analyzing the life of a man who died in poverty almost 4 centuries ago? The answer is simple. Rembrandt was the first modern artist. He did not want to flatter the tastes of elites. He wanted to move ordinary people. Rembrandt van Rijn teaches us that financial success is fleeting, but truth in art is eternal. He shows that darkness does not have to be frightening, that it is in darkness that the sparks of the human spirit are most visible. The next time you see one of his paintings, in the National Gallery in DC, or on your smartphone screen, don't just look at the technique. Look into the eyes of the figures. They are still looking at us, telling us what it means to be human, with all our mistakes, sorrows, and flashes of genius. If this story moved you, leave a like and let me know in the comments, which of Rembrandt's paintings is your favorite? Do you think great art must always be born from suffering? Subscribe so you don't miss more stories about people who changed the way we see the world. See you in the next episode.